Good morning, scholars, and welcome back to Learning with Mrs. Preby. We've been working on fairy tales. Today we're doing lessons 8 and 9, Jack and the Beanstalk. And our learning goal for today is I can distinguish fantasy from realistic text by explaining that certain events in a story could not have happened in real life. So in the fairy tales that we've been listening to, some plants or parts of plants have been very important to these fairy tales. So, for example, in the story Sleeping Beauty, a wall of thorns grew around the castle so nobody could pass through until after 100 years had gone by. And after 100 years, the path opens up so the prince can get into the castle. And in this story, in the story of Rumpelstiltskin, straw played a very important role because she was supposed to spin the straw into gold. Here he is, spinning the straw into gold, right? And in return, he tells her that he wants her firstborn child. Right? And in this story, the story of Rapunzel, the Rapunzel lettuce was a very important part of this story because in the beginning of the story, the wife is looking out the window and she's craving the Rapunzel. And the husband goes to steal the Rapunzel out of the garden. And eventually he tells the witch that he will give up his firstborn child for the Rapunzel. So plants are very important in some fairy tales. Not all fairy tales have plants in them, but some do. If you're familiar with the CKLA curriculum and you heard the stories in kindergarten, you might remember the story of Princess and a Pea. And the pea was a very important part of that story. Okay. I wonder if you've ever traded something for something else that you might have wanted. So, let's see. For example, I have a video game that I am done with, and I would like to trade my video game for a different game. Maybe a video game, maybe not even a video game. I'm sure you maybe have traded something. So, I'm wondering if what you traded was something both you and the person you traded with thought it was a fair and good trade. So sometimes you make a trade that you wish you hadn't made because you decided might not be fair. So listen carefully to find out what is traded in this fairy tale today and decide if you think it's a good trade. Listen also to find out how a plant is important in this fairy tale. So you may have already heard this fairy tale, but listen to see if you have, then you can listen to see if this fairy tale is the same as the one you are familiar with. Once upon a time, there was a poor widow. A widow is a woman whose husband has died and had an only son named Jack and a cow named Milky White. All they had to live on was the milk that the cow gave every morning, which they carried to the market and sold. But one morning, Milky White gave no milk. "Oh, Jack," said the poor widow, wringing her hands, We have nothing to eat and no money. We must sell poor Milky White." "Cheer up, Mother," said Jack. "It's market day today. I'll sell Milky White, and then we'll be better off, you'll see." So Jack took the cow and started down the road. He had not gone far when he met an unfamiliar old man. The old man said, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning to you," said Jack, and he wondered how the old man knew his name. "Well, Jack, where are you off to?" said the man. "I'm going to the market to sell a cow there." "Oh, yes, you look like just the sort of fellow to sell a cow," said the man. "Now I wonder," he said to Jack, "do you know how many beans make 5? Jack thought this was a strange question, but he answered anyway. "2 beans in each hand and 1 bean in your mouth. That makes 5. "Right you are," said the old man, and then pulling something out of his pocket, he said, "And here they are." He held out 5 very unusual beans. "Now, because you're such a smart fellow," he said to Jack, "I will trade you these beans for your cow." "Well, now," said Jack, "that would be a nice trade for you." "Ah, but if you don't know what kind of beans these are," said the man, "if you plant them tonight, then by tomorrow they'll grow right up to the sky." "Really?" said Jack, who was beginning to get interested. "Yes," said the man, "and if it doesn't turn out to be true, then you can have your cow back." "All right, then," said Jack. He gave the man the cow and took the beans and went home. Do you think that Jack should have made this trade? What do you think Jack's mother's going to think about his trade? "Jack, are you back already?" said his mother. "I see you've sold Milky White. How much did you get for her?" "Mother, you will never guess," said Jack. "Oh, you good boy," said his mother. "Did you get 5 or 10? Maybe. No, it can't be 20. What do you think his mom is referring to? Yeah, she thinks he's got some money for the cow." "I told you couldn't guess," said Jack. Then reaching into his pocket, he said, "See here, Mother, I got 5 beans. You plant them, and then overnight they—" "What?" cried his mother. "Beans? You gave away my Milky White for beans? How could you be such a fool? Off to bed with you and no supper. And as for your precious beans, here they go out the window." Precious means valuable or very special. Do you think Jack's mother believes that the beans are precious? Why is she saying this? So Jack's mom is angry about these beans, and she doesn't think the beans are worth anything, so she's throwing them out the window. So Jack went to his little attic room without supper, where he flopped down and finally fell asleep. The attic is a room at the top of the house, in the space underneath the roof. So when he woke up, the room looked funny. The sun was shining into part of it, but all the rest was dark and shady. He jumped up and went to the window, and what do you think he saw? What do you think Jack saw? Right here. Why, the beans his mother had thrown out the window had landed in the garden, and overnight they had sprung up to an enormous beanstalk, which went up, up, up until it reached the sky. So the old man had been telling the truth. The beanstalk grew right up to Jack's window, although all he had to do was step out onto it and then start climbing it like a ladder. So Jack climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, until at last He reached the sky, and when he got there, he saw a long, straight road. He followed the road until he came to a great, big, tall house. And on the doorstep, there was a great, big, tall woman. "Good morning, ma'am," said Jack quite politely. "Could you be so kind as to give me some breakfast?" What do you notice about this woman in this picture? Right here. So, giants are very strong and large characters, sometimes found in fairy tales. Okay. "Oh, so you want breakfast," said the great big tall woman. "Well, you'll be breakfast if you don't get out of here. My husband is a fierce giant, and there's nothing he likes better than a nice cooked boy on buttered toast. If someone is fierce, he or she is very strong and dangerous. Does this sound like something that could really happen, or is it fantasy?" "I'm sure you said that it was fantasy, because this can't really happen. You better get going, for he'll be coming soon." "Oh, please, madam," said Jack. "I haven't eaten since yesterday. Really and truly." Well, the giant's wife wasn't so bad after all. She took Jack into the kitchen and gave him a chunk of bread and cheese and a jug of milk. But Jack hadn't half finished these when thump, 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 the whole house began to tremble with the noise of someone coming. Someone big. To tremble means to shake. Who do you think's coming? What do you think's going to happen next? Who do you think is coming? "Goodness gracious, it's my husband," said the giant's wife. "What on earth shall I do? Quick, jump in here." And Jack jumped in the oven just as the giant came in. He was a big one, to be sure. He had 3 cows tied to his belt. He threw them down on the table and said rudely to his wife. He said it without politeness or respect. So does he sound very nice? "Here, wife, cook me a couple of these for breakfast." But wait. What's this I smell? Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. "Now, dear," said his wife, "it's nothing but a leftover smell of that little boy you had for dinner yesterday. Go along and wash up. By the time you come back, I'll have breakfast ready." So the giant went off, and Jack was about to jump out of the oven when the woman whispered, "Wait till he's asleep. He always takes a nap after breakfast." The giant gulped down his breakfast, so he swallowed his breakfast quickly and in big bites. Then he went to a giant chest and took out 2 big bags. He sat down, and from the bags he took out piles of gold coins. He began counting them very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then his head began to nod. And as soon as he began to snore, so that the whole house shook, Jack crept out of the oven, tiptoed past the giant, and grabbed one of the bags of gold, which he could barely lift. And then, lickety-split, he ran quick back to the beanstalk. Do you think that lickety-split means very quick or very slow? He threw down the bag of gold, which fell kerplunk into his mother's garden. Then he climbed down until he reached the ground. I think lickety-split means fast. Well, Mother, he said, wasn't I right about the beans? They really are magic. How do you think Jack's mother responded to Jack? For a while, Jack and his mother bought what they needed, and a little more with the bag of gold. But alas, the bag was empty, so Jack made up his mind to try his luck again at the top of the beanstalk. He climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and once again, sure enough, there was a great tall woman standing on the doorstep of her house. Once again, he asked for something to eat. Go away, boy, said the woman, or else my husband will eat you up for breakfast. But say, aren't you the youngster who came here once before? Do you know, on that very day my husband lost one of his bags of gold? Did he now? Said Jack. How very strange. Maybe I could help you find it. But I'm so hungry that first I must have something to eat. So the great tall woman gave him something to eat. But he had hardly taken a bite when thump, 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 they heard the giant's footsteps. Once again, the wife hid Jack in the oven. It all happened as it had before. In came the giant, bellowing, fee, fi, fo, fum. Then after gulping down his broiled oxen for breakfast, the giant said, Wife, bring me my hen and my golden harp. So bellowing is shouting in a loud, powerful voice. The wife brought them. The giant looked at the hen and barked, or said loudly, Lay! And the hen laid an egg all of gold. Then the giant looked at the golden harp and said, Sing! And the golden harp sang beautifully. And it went on singing until the giant fell asleep and started to snore like thunder. Oh my goodness, what is Jack gonna do? Jack sneaked out of the oven and crept like a mouse on his hands and knees. Then he crawled up the table, grabbed the hen and the golden harp, and dashed out toward the door. He sneaked, crept, and crawled. Remember these words? But the hen began to cluck, and the harp called out, Master! Master! The giant woke up just in time to see Jack running away with his treasures. Jack ran as fast as he could, and the giant came bounding after him, or leaping forward it, and would have caught him, only Jack had a head start. And when Jack got to the beanstalk, he climbed down as fast as he could. The giant reached the beanstalk and stopped short. He didn't like the idea of climbing down such a ladder. But like it or not, the giant swung himself down onto the beanstalk, which shook with his weight. By this time, Jack had climbed down and reached home. Mother, he cried, give me an axe and hurry! His mother came rushing out with the axe in her hand. She ran with Jack to the beanstalk, and then she screamed with fright as she saw the giant making his way down. Jack swung the axe and gave a chop at the beanstalk. The giant felt the beanstalk shake. As he stopped to see what was the matter, Jack gave another chop and another and another. The beanstalk began to topple over. Then the giant fell down and broke his crown, and the beanstalk came tumbling after. Does this remind you of a nursery rhyme where someone once fell and broke his crown and something else came tumbling down after? From then on, Jack and his mother had all the money and music they wanted. For the hen gave them golden eggs, and the harp sang for them all day long, and they lived happily ever after. I like that story. All right. Why is Jack's mother in the beginning of the story wringing her hands? She's worried because the cow, Milky White, had stopped giving milk. And they don't have any other way to get any money or eat. So why do you think the man traded the beans for the cow? It's kind of a mystery. The story doesn't really say. What does Jack's mother do when she hears about this trade? Yeah, she threw the beans out the window, right? And she sent Jack to his attic room with no supper. Does she think these beans are precious? No. What does Jack discover when he wakes up the next morning? In the spot where his mother had threw the beans, a large beanstalk had grown to the sky. Would a plant really grow this fast, or is that fantasy? Yeah, it is fantasy or magic, right? So, could a person really climb a beanstalk? No, this part is also fantasy. Who did Jack meet after he claims the beanstalk? Right, I'm sure you said that he met a very tall woman who was married to a fierce giant. Pretty sure you said that, right? So what does the giant's wife tell Jack to do at the beginning of this part of the fairy tale when the rude giant comes into the house and to gulp down his breakfast? Right, she says to hide in the oven, but why does she tell him that? Right, because the giant likes to eat people, right, or little boys. I think that Hansel and Gretel, she tried to get them in the oven so she could cook them. So why does Jack go back up the beanstalk a second time, even after hearing the giant's bellowing voice? Yeah, him and his mom had spent all the money. They still needed to eat, so they went to go get some more money, right? How does the giant's wife treat Jack the second time? So again, she gave Jack breakfast, and she helped him hide when the giant came home. Did she recognize Jack from before? She did, you're right. So, what treasures did Jack take from the giant the second time he went? He took the hen that laid the golden eggs and the harp that sings, right? What happened when Jack tried to escape with the hen and the harp? Right, the giant wakes up. He comes bounding down the beanstalk after Jack. And then Jack chops down the beanstalk with an axe. And the giant fell down and breaks his crown. Good. Alright. I want you to take a look at this right here. This is our chart for Jack and the Beanstalk. These are the elements of a fairy tale. And remember, the setting of a story tells both where and when. So where and when the story happens. So let's think about this. Mm, so what is the setting? Let's see. The where is, let's see. Oops. Hold on. I made a mistake here. Oh my goodness. So the where tells, the story starts out at Jack's house, right? So let's see if I can make this bigger. So it does begin with Jack's house. And then it also takes place at the giant's house, right? I don't remember there being any other settings. The where. I think the where is either just Jack's house or the giant's house. And when does this story take place? The story takes place once upon a time. Once upon a time. Or a long time ago. We talked about how a long time ago. Once upon a time basically means it just happened a long time ago. Some real characters in this. Let's see. I'm going to take a quick look at the characters in this story. I see Jack and his mom. Okay. I'm walking all the way through here. So, and then there's the giant and his wife. I'm trying to think. Are any of these characters royal? Is Jack or his mom a royal character? How about the giant and the wife? Are they royal characters? No, they're not. So a lot of fairy tales have royal characters, but this one doesn't. It has Jack, Jack's mom. Whoops. There is the giant's wife. And the giant. So those are, well, let's see. No, realistic characters. I'm sorry, this is my mistake. Just Jack and Jack's mom are realistic. The magical characters, let's see. Hold on here. Let's see. The magical characters in this case are actually the giant. Sorry about this. Giants and the giant's wife. There's no giants. Also, the harp and the hen. Those are magical characters in this because they can't happen in real life. In real life, we don't really have giants that eat little boys. Or harps that can sing, or hens that can lay eggs. That's not things that we actually see in life. I'm gonna have to shrink this back down. Fantasy events, fantasy or magical events that happen in this story. I'll have to think for a minute here. Let me put in my text box. What are some things that happen in the story that can't really happen? Well, you gonna go to the store and get magical beans? No. Oh, these are really small writing. So I want to make it larger. So magic beans. Those are not real. Those are definitely fantasy type events. Let me think of what else is a fantasy thing that happened in this story. Mm, let's see. There was the hen that laid the golden eggs. That's pretty magical or fantasy. Hen that lays golden eggs. That's not an event that really happens. How about a harp? Can a harp sing by itself? A harp that sings. That's pretty magical, right? So let's think about some of the problems that were in this story, because we know that fairy tales have all these different elements, and having a problem is one of the elements that make a fairy tale what it is. So, in the beginning of the story, we see that one problem was the cow stopped giving milk, right? Cow stopped giving milk. And then we also seen that, let's see, they were hungry, right? So this all started because they were hungry, right? And unless they were hungry, and plus they didn't have anything to eat, and they had nothing to eat. That was something that happened at the beginning of the story there. And then later on, I think we seen some more problems here where they run out of coins again, right? So Jack and Mom run out of coins. So then Jack has to go back up the beanstalk, right? So, and then at the end of the story, we see that Jack is chased by the giant. So that's another story, another problem that he runs into. So let's think of some of the solutions to the problems they're facing. So the cow stopped giving milk, and they were hungry and had nothing to eat. So the solution to that was, remember, they traded the cow for magic, or Jack. Jack traded the cow. I can't say they did because Mom was pretty mad about it. But Jack traded the cow for magical beans, right? So that's how they're going to get something to eat. So when Jack and Mom run out of coins, Jack climbed the beanstalk again. What does he do? He steals the hen and the harp, right? This is how they solve the problem of running out of coins. So then Jack is chased by the giant. We have that right here. Jack is chased by the giant. And how do they solve that problem? Jack cut down the beanstalk. Right? That was the solution to the problem. So how did this fairy tale end? Well, we've been doing a lot of fairy tales, and there's a common theme amongst fairy tales that they all end happily ever after, right? Happily ever after. So that's a trend that you see in fairy tales. In this read aloud, you heard he threw them down on the table and said rudely to his wife, "Here, wife, cook me a couple of these for breakfast." Say the word rudely. Rudely means without politeness or any respect. The boys rudely cut to the front of the lunch line. Let's see. What else does this giant do that's rude? He actually does a lot of rude things, like oh, fee, fi, fo, fum. Wanting to eat the little boy is pretty rude, I would say. So, in the previous read aloud, or in this read aloud, you heard, "Good morning, madam," said Jack quite politely. I'm going to describe a few situations to you. If what I say is an example of somebody acting rudely, say they are acting rudely. If I give an example of somebody acting politely, say they are acting politely. The boys are helping pick up apples that fell out of the bag. I hope you said the boys are acting politely. I always have to remember to make sure we're using complete sentences when we answer these. The girl was yelling at her brother for spilling his milk. I hope you said she's acting rudely. The boy slammed his door shut before his little sister could come into his room. I hope you said the boy is acting rudely. The man started talking when somebody else was already talking. I hope you said the man is acting rudely. The children remembered to say please and thank you. I'm sure you said the children are acting politely. Good job. In this read aloud, you heard, "And as for you, your precious beans, here they go, out the window." Say the word precious. If something is precious, it is very valuable and special. My grandmother's necklace is precious to me. In many of the fairy tales we've read, characters have items that are precious to them. I want you to think of something that is precious to you, and I want you to draw a picture and write a sentence talking about why these things are precious. So I have this right here. You're going to draw a picture and you are going to write this sentence: my blank is precious to me because of why. So for example, my mother's necklaces are precious to me because they used to be my mom's. Okay? So I would draw a picture of a necklace and I would write this on here. Okay? So I want you to draw a picture of something that is precious to you. Make sure you put this sentence. You're not going to put a line like this on there. You're going to write what it is you're talking about. So whatever it is that is precious to you, and why is it precious? So you need to finish the sentence. Then I want you to take a picture of it and send it to me in Class Dojo. Okay? Today's learning goal was I can distinguish fantasy from realistic text by explaining that the certain events in a story could not have happened in real life. So this is the last of our fairy tales. This is the last of our fairy tales. Next time we meet, we're going to be discussing a very important birth, the birth of an entire nation. So we're going to talk about how the United States came to be. All right? Until then, have a great day.